My real world use of Microsoft Viva. Viva Connections. Hi, my name is Michael Giannotti, and I'm a principal technical specialist for the Microsoft Corporation, focusing in our healthcare and life sciences group. As always, after this video, if you're looking for more information, you can find myself and all my colleagues on our blog at aka.ms/HLS blog. That's aka.ms/HLS blog. So the impetus for this series that I'm going to be doing is all around repeated questions I get from customers when I do demonstrations and such. Usually we're doing those around use cases that customers have where they want to understand all the functionality. But invariably we get into, yeah, but Mike, what do you actually use this for? How often do you use it? What do you see people doing with it? So what I thought I would do is capture just the real practical, my day-to-day use of Viva, where I actually am leveraging it heavily. And we're going to go through that, and we'll leverage the different pillars to kind of section off and talk about that. So today we're going to be using the connections, which includes both, it includes the Viva Connections Home. It also includes Viva Engage. In the future, it'll include Amplify, but we'll go into the areas that I use and I use frequently. So let's go ahead, advance our slide. And so here you can see we're looking at, first of all, Viva Connections, the home. And this is that entry point that I access on my device here, on my personal computer. I go ahead and I access it via Teams because it's all via that single pane of glass, Microsoft Teams to get work done. But I also, and I'm going to hit on this as we go through, I access the resources here, and this is my real world one, my corporate, right, for Microsoft. I access it right off of mobile as well. And Viva Connections, really, I'm going to go back just so I can kind of start here. Number one, it's where I go first of all in Microsoft Teams every morning. I have, just as they have in this icon here in the upper right hand side, you can see they have Viva up there. I have it in my upper left hand corner. I have it in my upper left hand corner as well. And it's the first thing that I go to each day. And why do I do that? Well, because there's a number of things that I leverage and look at right off the bat. The first of which we have, just like this in this example here at Microsoft, we have Viva Learning front and center. So I can see if I have learning due, and I can click and go right into it if I need to do so. But there's also a couple of other things within the dashboard that I use within a regular basis. Number one, there's one around time off. So just as an example, today I had to go through and actually grab vacation time and do some of that. And so I did that right from here, initiated that on the desktop to go ahead and do that. The other important ones that I leverage actually connect with other systems. So the one that I use twice a month at the very least is Paystub, right? So that connects to our financial system around pay for employees. And so I can go in and I can see at a glance my pay stub. This last pay, just as an example, my wife was on vacation up in Michigan when I got paid, and we had some questions because extra money came in. So I was able to pull it up on there. Then I was able to grab, some screenshots and send that to her, and I was able to go into the detailed view, all from within Teams via the Viva Connections home. So very just practical things that I go there for. The other, of course, that I use on a regular basis, and we're going to get into it as I drill down, is up here the navigation that you are provided based off what's been lit up for you. So for example, for myself, within our instance, I get to see learning, I get to see engage, I see up there insights, and I'll talk about that, and I see up there goals. So those are the ones that are exposed for me internally that I leverage on a regular basis. Topics is enabled for me. but it doesn't, we don't have that lit up there. So I actually have it on my side rail. But I use that for all the other navigation to the Viva components, because that way I don't have to have everything on my left-hand rail. I want to keep that clear and clean for other stuff I'm doing. And so by having that lit up in a single place with the Viva Connections Home, it lets me really kind of zero in on it. So that's at a highlight what I do. The last thing I do look at, I glance through the feed real quick. A lot of times, because I do follow a number of folks, folks like from corporate, like Mark Cashman, Jeff Teeper, and others, Dan Holm. Those folks, their stuff it will pop in here and I can click through and read it. But also I see stuff that's even posted by my colleagues when they're sharing out and posting stuff, maybe to a Viva Engage, where they're posting something. And it allows me just really to keep up, not just with the information corporate's pushing out, but of areas of interest and people of interest that I follow. So Connections Home is my start for all things Viva, and it's actually the start of my day at Microsoft. I pull it up, I pull up Teams, I grab those views, and that's what I leverage. And so, and I leverage it both desktop and mobile. Oftentimes I'm sipping coffee early and I can quick glance through and take a look at some of the info there. The next thing that I use in the connections myself a lot, and I'll explain what and how, is Viva Engage. I use Viva Engage. That's another one I go to every day. So, connections and then your portal, that's really some of the feeding of stuff and presentation of applications, as well as information. Viva Engage is where I go to engage with others. I mean, it is what it says. I engage with others, right? So I'll typically come in quickly for myself. I'll glance real quickly here, at the feed coming up. I will go sometimes over to communities, but where I like to focus and where I typically go is to the stories component within Engage. I love going there because people I'm following, I can see what they're posting about. I mentioned Jeff Teeper earlier. Every Friday, he has a thing called the Fast Friday that he shares internally, and it's all kinds chock full of great information. Again, Mark Cashman, just the other day, Dan Holm was posting from the 365 conference, Caruana Gatimo, and others. I mean, it's great stuff people are posting, and I love to go here because that's where I see what they're doing. And then I share via my storyline when I'm doing posts like this, when my colleagues are doing things, or we have events coming up in HLS. I've even had a couple of rants about things where I've shared stuff. And sure enough, it's amazing. Like I'm not going to tell you the nature of it, but the other day, there were some things that rubbed me the wrong way, how we were approaching things in the field with some of our customers. And I ranted on it and I pointed out what upset me about it and what I thought we were doing that maybe not the best approach. I got within, I want to say half hour, maybe an hour. I got pinged by a director who follows me and he's like, hey, Mike, normally I don't say anything when people are around, but people have known you, you've been around here a long time. I really would like to understand why you're feeling this way about that, and be able to talk through, because his group actually and what I was talking about was where part of what I was seeing as an issue came about. So we ended up having a con call. I pinged him back and said, hey, well, you got a few minutes. I'm heads down working on something else right now, but I can certainly break away and talk with you. So we had a Teams call. We talked through, and it all came through from storylines, because again, if you're somebody who is putting out your thoughts around how to do things in the business, and I always, once in a while I'll share something like if I'm forging in the black, I do blacksmithing work as a hobby. And if I'm in the forge doing something, I might share a picture of that, or scuba. But typically in there, I am sharing about things that are of a work nature. And, so I've built up a following, just like I follow many other people out here. And when you post something out, that can have ripples, and you can cut across organizational silos, which is what happened in this case. And so Engage is one of those areas I go to and I leverage every day. Just like you'd use Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or TikTok or whatever for social and personal stuff on the outside, this is where I go to share and to engage and share learnings, etc. From here. It's also, I will tell you, I had one other experience I want to quick share. Um, Earlier in the year, when we were doing some of the early stuff with Viva Learning, I had posted out about leveraging, because it wasn't listed as supported, but I went ahead and I tried within a library structure just like I would for video in SharePoint, and being adding that to Viva Learning. I shared out MP3s, and sure enough, they just worked and they just played in line, right, within Teams. And I said, I know that Stream in SharePoint supports native playback of an MP3 just like it plays back an MP4 or another supported video file. And when you do that in combination with Viva Learning, you can then have somebody doing just-in-time learning for clinicians or others, audio podcast recording from their phone. In my case, it'd be an iPhone, and that's what I showed. And then being able to make that available on an updated basis with Viva Learning. And so that caught some people's attention because people weren't doing that and weren't looking at some of that. So I had a chance then to dialogue and have some exchange of information with people on a SharePoint team / engage / learning / the Microsoft Stream team, but a number of folks, and we did some dialoguing and some examples, and some people were looking to do things internally. And, we were able to have constructive dialogue that's led to some advances around things being done because I posted my initial thoughts and feelings in Engage. So Engage storyline, huge for me. Use it almost every day. And whether it's me sharing or responding to somebody else or just maintaining, some of those connections, that's what I do there. The other thing, though, that I leverage uh, on not as frequent a basis, but I do leverage, and I've been leveraging more. We rolled out answers in Viva Engage recently, and there's been a couple of occasions where there's been some things around licensing and other things that I typically don't get deep in around some of the product sets, and where there was some, in my mind, some ambiguity. I wanted some clarification. And so Viva Answers, when you post things in here, it's really that crowdsourcing effort with some AI behind it. But being able to go in, post a question, people being able to upvote, downvote, respond, getting, and crowdsourcing an answer to a pertinent question you have for business within your business. And so I've leveraged that now. I want to say, since we rolled it out, maybe 3 times. So not as frequent as Engage, which I use every day, but certainly it has helped me, because those were questions that around that ambiguity that I needed to get real crystal clear on from the experts internally. And with that, be able to then relay that to some customers who had asked me. So that's what I'm doing, in here with Engage. So really, with the connections piece, I use the Viva Connections Home a lot. I do go click over to the portal on our homepage once in a while, but I leverage the aspect of the feed, and then I leverage a lot of that mobile, especially pay stub on every 2 weeks. Pull that up on here, and then finally Engage. I leverage the storylines all the time, daily, to actually engage with my colleagues across the organization and even internationally. So that's how I use the connections portion or pillar on a real world basis for me. Certainly, different people will use different things. If you think about the dashboard on the home, and I'll just quick pull that up again. Let's go ahead. There we go. On the dashboard on that, initial home in Viva Connections with the single piece here, there can be all kinds of useful tiles. We've lit up a recent one on book a room, right? So you could book an actual physical room for use. So that's there. I work from home, so my room's booked by me every day. So I don't. That's not of necessarily the same interest, but the learning is a big one that I do pay attention to. The pay stub certainly. I also use my stock one during the beginning of the calendar year. I used the one for internally, it's ours. We call it Perks Plus, and it's a benefit to get you out of the house and get you doing things maybe away from your computer. And they allocate funds that you can use towards equipment, health equipment, etc. So I use that at the beginning of the year because I pretty much burn mine up quick. But there's a couple of tiles that I hit on, in the morning. I use the feed, and then I absolutely use this above. And in the context of the connections pillar, I use engage. Now, amplify, I've had people ask me about that. That's something that gets pushed out information to you. So I'm not doing anything with that. That would be Corp Com. Leadership, the leadership corner. So, I have looked in there. I haven't had a lot of occasion to go in personally, but it is something that I know there are a lot of folks that are interested in that and being able to engage. And it's probably an area I need to leverage a little more because some of the folks that I follow who are leaders are now starting to get ramped up in there. But for me today, and then we'll close out here, it's Viva Connections Home in the Connections pillar, both mobile and desktop, and it's Viva Engage, and with a heavy emphasis on the storylines that I use daily. So that's it. That's what I do. I'd love to hear what you do in the connections pillar. Um, Let me know. Write it in the comments, on the blog post here. Love to hear about that. If you've got, anything that you've posted and want to share that, uh, go ahead, share it out, put it on the internet. If you, in the comments, leave a link to it, I can certainly add that into the blog post as a resource so somebody can see how you're using it. It's always great to share. It's great to know how we're all using these things because then it gives us all ideas. That's it for today. How I use my real world example. We'll go back. My real world use of Viva for the connections pillar. This has been Mike Giannotti. And again, you can find myself and all my colleagues at aka.ms/HLS blog. That's aka.ms/HLS blog. Have a great one. Take care. And as always, ciao.